Author David Benjamin is our guest on WRCO's Morning Show. He's been a frequent guest on the show over the years because he just keeps working, it seems like. How are you, David?
Oh, I'm pretty good, thank you.
Keeps you out of mischief, I guess, right?
Well, I manage to, actually, most of my mischief comes in my writing.
Okay, that's good stuff. You've got a new effort called Christmas in a Jugular Vein. Where did the idea to put this together come from, David?
Well, when I was in high school, when I was 16, I wrote my first Christmas story. It was called The Little Red Dot, and I have a friend. She's still a friend. She's here in Madison. She was the editor of the high school newspaper, and because the administration at La Follette High School was a little nervous about my writing, I wasn't allowed to work for the high school newspaper. But Patty, my friend, who was the editor, managed to sneak these two Christmas stories that I'd written into it. One was called The Little Red Dot. The other was called Next Year, Bring Guns. And ever since then, whenever I've had a regular writing routine, I've written a Christmas story every year.
That's awesome. So this is kind of the compilation of all of those, in other words.
Yeah, it's a collection of 38 stories, sketches, satires, essays, and poems on the Christmas theme. And it's all, the title, Christmas in a Jugular Vein, most people don't remember this, but the early Mad magazine, their motto was humor in a jugular vein. And so I stole that concept from the early version of Mad magazine, before Alfred E. Newman.
Oh, sure. I presume you read that publication then.
Oh, I think I was 12 years old when I got my first magazine subscription, and it was Mad Magazine.
Well, that is awesome. Now, you take some regular stories and you kind of twist them up a little bit here. Could you talk about which one is your favorite?
That's a good question. Probably, the first couple that I wrote in high school, The Little Red Dot and Next Year Bring Guns, which were strange variations on the whole concept of Santa Claus. Though they'll always have a place in my heart because I wrote them when I was 16, and actually it was some of the best writing I did when I was that young. But since then I've been doing variations on a whole lot of familiar Christmas themes. Obviously on the nativity scene, on A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, Clement Moore's The Night Before Christmas, and A Christmas Story. The movie that originated from Gene Shepard's stories. I've done variations on all of that, plus some essays and some original stuff that doesn't refer back to anybody else's previous work. But the great thing about Christmas is that it's not just a holiday. It's become a literary theme, and so by doing a Christmas story every year, I've been kind of compelled to treat that literary theme in as many ways as possible in order to please the people that read my stories.
Now, you mentioned Gene Shepard's work that became the movie, and I can kind of picture you maybe as a youngster growing up in Wisconsin as Ralphie.
Of course, yeah. Anybody who grew up in Wisconsin, even more recently, or anywhere in the, Gene Shepard grew up in Indiana, in Hammond, Indiana, and his family did a lot of vacationing up north in Michigan, and so anybody who's read Gene Shepard's stories has a real bond with him, especially if they're from the Midwest, and so it was a natural thing, and he grew up in an era that was very similar to the era that I grew up in. So all that stuff that happened to Ralphie and all those other kids at Warren G. Harding School was pretty similar to what I experienced at Christmas time at St. Mary's School in Tomah, Wisconsin.
Could you see any of these short stories being made into some sort of animated thing or a live play or anything like that?
Each, the reason I call it Christmas in a Jugular Vein is that they're all a little bit mischievous and transgressive, and I guess, but there's been a lot of mischievous, transgressive Christmas movies made. Certainly, even A Christmas Story is one of them. When you picture, Ralphie, talking to Santa Claus, and then Santa Claus telling him he's going to shoot his eye out, and then the elf shoves him down the chute that way. You realize that this is not the usual sweetness and light image of Christmas. And of course, anybody who's experienced a lifetime of Christmases knows that a lot of them aren't particularly sweetness and light. But everybody goes through some rough Christmases. And so, my stories are a mixture of the sweetness and light and the rough Christmas. Making movies out of stories is an interesting concept because I think I write stories that are filmable. But once you approach the prospect of turning them into a film, you have to deal not only with the publishing establishment, which has been one of my struggles all my life, but you have to deal with the Hollywood establishment, and now you have all the independent film companies, which are a whole new establishment. So getting from story to movie is a journey that most authors don't even think about because it's so hard.
The titles of some of the chapters, including numerous Scrooges, several Marleys, and a flock of Cratchits. I was curious about that one.
Marley and Scrooge, of course, are the main figures in A Christmas Carol. Marley's ghost and Scrooge the person, and of course Bob Cratchit. For instance, in the last story in the book, which is Nobody Says, I have a family living someplace in the suburbs whose name is Cratchit, and I use all the Cratchit names from A Christmas Carol. But of course, this is set in a modern context, and it doesn't have most of the elements that are in the original Christmas Carol, and of course it's a variation on Dickens' original story. But the thing. I guess the point is that if I mention Cratchits and Scrooges and Marleys and Frosty the Snowman and Santa Claus, anybody who's reading the story has an immediate connection to the story. They want to know how this particular version of Scrooge or Frosty or Santa Claus or the Virgin Mary at the Nativity comes out. They want to know how the whole story transpires, and they already have a connection with it.
Also, a dozen Santas, including Murray Lefkowitz, I guess that is, and Santa's brother.
Lefkowitz, everybody who's seen A Miracle on 34th Street remembers the Santa Claus, whom Maureen O'Hara kicks off the float during the Macy's parade because he's a drunk.
Oh yeah.
Well, my story is the continued adventures of Murray Lefkowitz, the Santa Claus, the drunk Santa Claus, and it's really an exploration of down and out people. It's a dark comedy about down and out people who bumble their way into Christmas by getting hired by Santa Claus.
Ah, okay. And then Santa's brother Bruno.
His brother Bruno. He shows up in another story. Bruno decides to modernize the North Pole by digitizing everything and firing all the elves.
Where do you come up with these things?
It's not that easy, But I have a whole year to work on a new premise every year. So that's what when things get around Halloween, if I'm not thinking about my next Christmas story, I'm late already. But what's fascinating is that even though literarily, the writing community, the author community, the publishing community hasn't taken Christmas very seriously as a literary theme, but I always have. And of course, there are dozens and dozens of TV Christmas movies, and we have a handful of great Christmas movies, including the various versions of A Christmas Carol. But I guess one of the experiences that taught me how vast and fertile the idea of Christmas stories was when I was running. I was editor of a weekly newspaper in Mansfield, Massachusetts, for 7 years, and every year I had a big fat Christmas issue with a lot of advertising that I had to fill up the space. And I'd launched a Christmas story contest in the public schools, and kids from first grade to 12th grade competed in their grades, and to get their stories among the top 3 in the competition, and then I would give out prizes for the top 3 stories overall. And of course, this resulted in a flood of Christmas stories, all of which I had to read and judge. But then when I had the winners in each grade, I had a whole bunch of stories to fill space, and there just some wonderful stuff came out of these kids, first graders and second graders, as well as kids in high school, and it was just a joy to go through all these stories, and it really enhanced my perception of how rich and exciting it is to write Christmas stories.
I think back to, way back in the day, any kind of a Christmas parody was kind of frowned upon. Even something as simple as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. There were those that thought, or the Chipmunks, that it wasn't cool to kind of make fun of Christmas in some ways.
Well, yeah, but one of the essays in my collection is about the fact that when Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, he made no mention whatsoever of the Christian foundation of Christmas. He treated it as a kind of secular holiday with a spirit of generosity and kindness that really expanded the concept of Christmas to everyone who read the story. And I think it was such an important story and a very popular story because he elevated the holiday from just a Christian festival to a universal moment of celebration and generosity and compassion for everyone, and indeed, A Christmas Carol is a parody of Christmas, and that opened the door. And not a lot of writers have gone through that door, either because they were preoccupied with other kind of writing or because they didn't take Christmas seriously. But we've had a number of great pieces of writing that are rooted in Christmas and are not necessarily part of the Christian religious tradition. And so, yeah. You're right. The parodies of Christmas have always been a little bit frowned upon, but that's really what attracted me to it. I've always tried to live by the motto of that was written in the monograph of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. He quoted a Nobel Prize poet who said, "If they give you ruled paper, write the other way."
Interesting.
Yeah, and so but I think that's most writers, who are serious about their writing, they hearken to that kind of an idea. If they give you ruled paper, write the other way. I just remembered the name of the poet. His name was Juan Ramon Jimenez. He was a wonderful poet.
The Ballad of Skagway Phil. Since my name is Phil, that one kind of drew my attention a little bit. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. You can think of yourself now as Skagway Phil, right?
Sure. What's that about?
One of my favorite poets when I was in high school was Robert Service, who wrote The Shooting of Dan McGrew. Are you familiar with that?
Just the title.
Right. And my favorite of his poems was the Cremation of Sam McGee, which I think if I can remember the beginning, there are strange things done in the midnight sun by the men who moil for gold. The Arctic trails have their secret tales that would make your blood run cold. the Northern Lights have seen queer sights, but the queerest they ever did see was that night on the marge of Lake LaBarge. I cremated Sam McGee. Now that's how the poem begins. I memorized it in high school, and I always loved reading Robert Service because of that mock heroic verse that he used. So one year I just decided to write a poem in Robert Service's style and meter that was about Christmas, and it takes place in the Yukon. And Skagway Phil is the most dangerous character in all the Yukon, and he eventually in the poem has an encounter with Santa Claus.
Wow, it's an excellent gift, that's for sure. Where can people get a hold of the book, David?
The website, which I should probably recite for you, is www.lastkidbooks.com, and all my books can be ordered directly from my website. The nice thing, though, is that it's a seasonal book, so I can sell the same book next year. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know you've been honored many times. Is there one that's nearest and dearest to you?
One of probably my only successful marketing device, except maybe talking to you on the radio, is competing in literary competitions, and I've won up to 42 different awards from different independent publishing organizations. But probably the one that satisfies me the most is that I won the Midwest Book Award for fiction, the grand prize, a couple of years ago for my novel called They Shot Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. Which we've talked about on this program, and of course, people will remember The Last Kid Picked. That one, was that the one that kind of kicked it off for you?
Right. Yeah, that was published in 2002 by Random House. When the copyright became free in 2020, I regained the rights from Random House, and the nice thing about that was that I was able to revise it a little bit and improve it a little bit before I published it. The full title is The Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked. And it's among them, it's available on my website. And in 2003, it was Wisconsin Library Association a notable book, which is also a nice thing for it. A nice honor to receive, you know?
No doubt. Master storyteller David Benjamin on Christmas. And, it takes me back as well. When I was a kid, I used to always do a parody of The Night Before Christmas and put family members' names in there instead of, the well-known characters. So I can relate a little bit to this.
Well, yeah. My parody on The Night Before Christmas involves the mouse.
Oh, yeah.
The mouse. I have a mouse living in one of the stockings on the mantle. And raising her family there, in fact.
Was the mouse stirring or not? Probably not at that point.
The mouse did a lot of stirring in my story. Yes,
okay.
Right. Yeah. if the mouse doesn't stir, you don't have much of a story, right?
Well, that's true. Hey, always a pleasure to catch up with you. And if we don't talk to you before, have a great holiday and New Year, and we'll talk to you again in 25, I guess, then, David.
It's always great to talk to you, Phil. Oh, by the way, the book that I'm going to be publishing in I think probably on April 1st is one of my Paris books. I wrote it about 30 years ago and then set it aside, but my wife insisted that I bring it back to life. It's called An Apartment in Paris, and it's a chronicle with a lot of digressions about when my wife and I bought our apartment in Paris.
Oh, okay. So writing from that true life experience then.
Yes, this one's more of a memoir than a novel. I write mostly fiction, but occasionally I write about myself.
Wonderful. Well, we hope you don't have a lot of humbug moments this holiday season either, David.
Well, my usual Christmas greeting to people is Happy Humbug.
There you go. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you, Phil, and Happy Humbug.
Yeah, David Benjamin joining us, master storyteller, Christmas in a Jugular Vein. Check out his website and find out more about that in the coming days.